Hi folks, it's good to be with you. Love to everybody out there. I just want to make a quick video and dealing with the philosopher and scholarship of Dr. Stephen Hicks. He's a professional philosopher. He's written and lectured on modern philosophy and postmodern philosophy. He's quite a substantial academic, and he's spreading his ideas on the internet, talking to various hosts on the internet, particularly YouTube, and disseminating his ideas. Now, I like the guy. I think he's a really nice guy. I think he has a lot of interesting things to say. I admire his scholarly acumen. He's quite a formidable scholar. So I don't want to impinge or denigrate his scholarship. But I do want to take issue particularly on one particular point in some of his historical thesis in the development of philosophy and development of the modern human. One of his theses is that the Middle Ages was kind of a mystical age, and that coming into the 15th and 16th century we began to become into a modern age where it was become more rationalistic and more empirical. And you get the impression from his scholarship, his historical analysis, that religion, i.e. Christianity, was kind of backward in its rational application and rational implication in the Middle Ages, and until we get to the 15th to the 16th century, he does admit that Protestantism and the printing press do have a role in the development of education, in the development of people learning to think. So he does give the Protestant Reformation some kudos there, but it basically is looking to a kind of empiricism that develops in the 15th and 16th century as the way forward that brings modern man into a rational basis and a rational foundation. And it all sounds very interesting, it all sounds very kosher, it all sounds very verified, but I take issue with that. I take issue with that because I want to just go to the early church fathers, for example, and just look at some of the early church fathers. Particularly Justin Martyr was a philosopher, quite an erudite philosopher. You had Irenaeus, who was quite a substantial scholar and thinker. In his book Against Heresies, he marshals a lot of arguments to defend his faith against the Gnostics. Clement of Alexandria was quite an able philosopher. Origen of Alexandria was an able philosopher and textual critic. Athanasius was a very able and logical thinker. The Cappadocian Fathers were very able philosophers, such as Basil the Great, 330 to 379, Gregory of Nicaea, 332 to 395, Gregory of Nazianzus, 329-389. These were formidable intellects who were brilliant debaters and brilliant in their reason application. John Chrysostom was a massive scholar in his own right, and very eloquent in the application of speaking. Cyril of Alexandria was a brilliant philosopher who developed the Christology of the Christian faith. Even John of Damascus, a Syrian monk, his mysticism was quite intellectual, really. Tertullian, who said, what has Athens got to do with Jerusalem, was still quite a formidable philosopher in his own right and quite a formidable reasoner and able in his reason. And we could go on. Jerome was a great scholar, 347, 420. Augustine of Hippo was a great theologian, especially in the terms of history, 354 to 430. Now, to say that these people were mystics is just simplistic, because from the early church fathers right up to the Middle Ages, you had the development of science. Even in the 10th century, there was scientific developments going on within the church, and the encouragement of science and the development of science, even in the 10th century, by monks. You had a very strong influence with philosophy, Occam's razor, for example, and the early church fathers were very intellectual and very able scholars in their own right. To stigmatize the early church fathers and the Middle Ages as purely mystics is just so simplistic that it's not even worth debunking. So I would say that Dr. Hicks and quite a few modern philosophers are really pumping out simplistic understandings in the history of philosophy when they're making statements like that. So modernism did not just come in the wake of pure rationalism and empiricism. There was a long development, even from the early church fathers and the Middle Ages, that needs to be recognized, and that was a Christian input. And much of the modern development was from a Christian perspective as well. So postmodernism is really not the religious defending their faith, as Dr. Hicks has said. But postmodernism really is modernism finding that it has no clothes, because without the epistemology of God, you cannot defend your empiricism. So modernism found that it didn't have the epistemological basis and was swept into this fight with postmodernism, which said there was no truth, because postmodernism recognized that modernism didn't have the epistemological foundation to defend itself. So that's another issue that I have with Dr. Hick. So basically, my point is that when you hear a philosopher, a scholar, talking about the history of philosophy, or any topic, you need to go and do your own research and go back to the sources yourself and read the sources. So go and read the early church fathers, read prior to Sir Thomas Aquinas, and it's not as there were mystical branches within the church, but there were also very scientific and scholarly and philosophical branches within the church as well, right in from the early church fathers right up to the Middle Ages, which just completely smashes Dr. Hick's thesis. And I would encourage people to go deeper into scholarship rather than just take on what scholars are saying without actually looking into it yourself. Go to the sources yourself. Go to the early church fathers yourself. Go to the scholars yourself. Go to the sources and find out for yourself. Alright? God bless you.